Random House Audio presents The Ninth, Beethoven and the World in 1824 by Harvey Sachs. This is Patrick Egan. Prelude. Ludwig van Beethoven's Symphony No. 9 in D minor, Opus 125, is one of the most precedent-shattering and influential compositions in the history of music. Its word-driven final movement is a declaration in favor of universal brotherhood, which explains why the Ninth is the work most often used to solemnize an important event: the opening of the United Nations, the signing of a peace treaty at the end of a war, the fall of the Berlin Wall, or the consecration of a new concert hall. It is perceived as a vessel for a message that confers a quasi-religious yet non-denominational blessing on all good and just people, institutions, and enterprises. In short, on our side, whatever that may be. It has been used as a battle flag by liberals and conservatives, by Democrats and autocrats, by Nazis, communists, and anarchists. Composed during the last and most remarkable phase of Beethoven's artistic trajectory, the Ninth consolidated and elaborated on elements of his earlier creations and transcended them. It also became a reference point and stimulus for generations of artists throughout Europe and beyond, and it continues to resonate in the parallel worlds of ideas and ideals. Charging, or cluttering the Ninth with such ideas and ideals, not to mention feel-good meaning, was and is possible only because the last of its four movements contains words that express aspirations toward peace on earth and goodwill toward all human beings. But the first three extended dramatic movements of the deaf composer's symphonic masterpiece are not paeans of praise to freedom of the spirit, or to all-embracing joy, or to anything else. They deal in a variety of ways with intimate and extremely complex emotions and states of being. Thanks to its finale, however, the Ninth has become a paradigm for both freedom and joy, although it made its appearance in the middle of a decade in European history that was characterized by repression and ultra-conservative nationalism as Bourbons, Hapsburgs, Romanovs, and other terrified dynastic rulers strove to spruce up and enforce the concept of divine right in the wake of the French Revolution and the upstart Napoleon's imperialism. Through this single symphonic movement, Beethoven was, in effect, serving up a one-of-a-kind counter-argument to the retrograde tendencies of the day. Consequently, an understanding of the circumstances under which it was created reveals as much about the politics, aesthetics, and spirit of its time as it does about its composer's musical development. Like many of the Revolution's other spiritual heirs, Beethoven had to camouflage his libertarian aspirations and pay lip service to the rulers on whose patronage he depended, and for whom expressions about universal brotherhood were only too reminiscent of the ideals bandied about by the French Revolution, ideals that these rulers had only recently managed to smother. And yet, Beethoven required the singers and instrumentalists who gathered in Vienna on a spring day in 1824 for the world premiere of his new symphony to proclaim repeatedly and insistently the potentially subversive goal of universal brotherhood. Alle Menschen werden Brüder. All men become brothers. And seid umschlungen, Millionen. Be embraced, ye millions, were the key phrases in the excerpts from an ode by Friedrich von Schiller that Beethoven set to music in the symphony's finale. The poem was called An die Freude, to joy. But in Beethoven's transforming hands, it became a subtle, yet robust, unmistakable ode to and prayer for suffering humanity. From today's perspective, the premiere of Beethoven's Last Symphony was the most significant artistic event in 1824. But other works and deeds by other artists expressed, in many different ways, discontent over the return of anti-liberalism as a guiding principle and over the restoration of regimes that rejected the gains made not only by the Revolution, but even by its predecessor, the Enlightenment. Byron, Pushkin, Delacroix, Stendhal, and Heine, among others, all played important parts in the year's cultural history. And then there were the political figures in the real, everyday world, a fanatically religious Tsar and a pope with an eye fixed on secular matters, 2 French kings, and a South American liberator, Prince Metternich and President Monroe. Beethoven is the quintessential genius of Western culture, wrote Tia Denora in her 1995 study, Beethoven and the Construction of Genius, which deals with the composer's first decade in Vienna. The statement sounds nice, but it is too sweeping. It would be more accurate to say that Beethoven is, among other things, an iconic figure to worshippers of a certain type of genius, whereas Michelangelo serves that purpose for others, and Mozart or Dante or Goethe or Shakespeare or Picasso or Stravinsky for still others. Many human beings need to worship someone or a something, but the object of a worshipful person's worship says more about that person than about the worshipped object. Yet Beethoven and his works, and the romantic cult of genius that his example and his legend certainly did help to foster, exerted a powerful influence on later generations of musicians, artists, and thinkers, and the Ninth Symphony in particular became a symbol of Beethoven's protean status and predominant stature. After Mikhail Bakunin, the Russian revolutionary and sometime anarchist, had heard the work for the first time in Dresden in 1849, he told the conductor, Richard Wagner, that if all the music that has ever been written were lost in the expected worldwide conflagration, we must pledge ourselves to rescue this symphony, even at the peril of our lives. Many books and essays examine in great detail Beethoven's life, all or part of it, works, many or a few or only one of them, or influence, musical, cultural, or political, and I have referred to them in my notes and occasionally even in my text. But I must make a confession. I am not an authentic musicologist. I state this fact neither ashamedly nor proudly, but simply to give you an inkling of what lies ahead. My post-high school formal education was too brief and too erratic to allow me to claim titles that others earned by doing what I was too undisciplined to do. On the other hand, by the time I made up my mind to become a full-time writer, mainly about music, I was 38 years old and had a dozen years' experience as a conductor behind me, in addition to 3 published books on musical subjects.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?